So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are connecting from. And thank you very much for indeed joining us today. My name is Dominique Burgeon, for those who don't know me, and I'm the director of the FAO Office, Liaison Office in Geneva. And it is my pleasure to warmly welcome you to our seventh SIDS solution dialogue. I would like to start by extending my appreciation to you, the permanent representatives, delegates, and distinguished guests for joining us today, either in person or virtually, from in person in Geneva, as well as virtually from all over the world. We started the SIDS Dialogue series almost 2 years ago as a joint effort between the FAO Liaison Offices in Geneva, Brussels, and New York, as well as in cooperation with the Office of Small Island Developing States, Least Developed Countries, and Landlocked Developing Countries to address development challenges faced by SIDS and brainstorm on potential solutions. This has really been launched in the context of the SIDS Solution Forum that, as you know, has taken place for the first time in Fiji about 3 years ago. Today, we are joining forces with the FAO Fisheries and Aquaculture Division to have this dialogue on blue transformation, maximizing the contribution of aquatic food systems to the 2030 Sustainable Agenda in the SIDS. Earlier this year, the 4th International Conference on Small Island Developing States, SIDS-4, held in Antigua Barbuda, emphasized the need to ensure a secure future for SIDS, with a particular focus on enhancing food security. Among the key actions identified, the conference underscored the importance of sustainable aquatic food system and called for international support to strengthen fisheries and aquaculture practices. SIDS are global ocean stewards, managing 19% of the world's exclusive economic zones. Aquatic food systems thus provide significant opportunities in fostering employment, driving economic growth, advancing social development, and promoting environmental recovery, which are all essential components of the Sustainable Development Goals. To maximize this contribution, FAO has developed the Blue Transformation Vision as a guide to maximize the contribution of world aquatic food system to the Sustainable Development Goals. With this in mind, we have organized an engaging session that offers an overview of the current state of aquatic food system in SIDS and presents existing solutions that could pave the way for a true blue transformation and provide valuable contribution to the 2025 United Nations Oceans Conference. Today, we will begin with opening remarks from two prominent speakers. Ambassador Leslie Ramsammy, permanent representative of Guyana to the UN in Geneva, and Ambassador Falemka, chair of the Pacific Island Forum, who will be presenting the experience of Guyana and of the Pacific Island in the development of sustainable and integrated aquatic food system, aquatic value chains that provide opportunities for livelihood, food security, and resilience. Next, we'll have our colleague, Mr. Fuentevilla, who is Fishery Officer in the FAO Fisheries and Aquaculture Division, and Carlos will be setting the scene and providing the latest trends on fisheries and aquaculture in the SIDS. After that, we'll move to our panel of speakers, where we will have Angel Luis Franco, who is the Director of the Fisheries Resource Department at Codopesca, the Dominican Fisheries and Aquaculture Council, and Ms. Aracy Rodriguez, technician at the National Directorate of Fisheries and Aquaculture under the Ministry of Sea of Cabo Verde. It will provide insights into the practical actions and ideas that highlight the potential of aquatic food systems in advancing the 2030 sustainable agenda for the SIDS. We'll then have about 30 minutes for question and answer, for engagement with the speakers. And participants in the room should, of course, raise their hands. And those participating online should be preferably using the Q&A module where they can come up with their question, their name or their plaque, if you prefer the same networks. Before concluding, our colleague Joseph Niyama, who is a nutrition officer in the sub-regional office for the Pacific Islands, will provide insights into the upcoming Pacific SIDS Solution Forum, which will be held in Fiji in November. And then finally, we'll have Angélica Jácome, the director of the FAO Office of SIDS, LDCs and LLDCs, will deliver the closing remarks. Before we begin, some usual housekeeping. The webinar will last no more than 90 minutes. It will be recorded. Please keep your microphone muted if you are joining us online. And then, as I was saying, we encourage you to use the Q&A module should you want to make comments or raise questions. With that, I would like to start by warmly welcome you to our all to the 7th SIDS Solution Dialogue. And I will now pass the floor to His Excellency Ambassador Leslie Ramsammy, the permanent representative of Guyana to the UN. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Thank you, Dominique, and Excellencies and distinguished colleagues. It's a pleasure to be here this afternoon and speak on this very important subject. For SIDS, the blue economy provides us with a comparative advantage, and we must maximize its contributions in our development trajectories. Today, I'll provide a glimpse of how Guyana has integrated the blue economy in our sustainable development agenda and our ambition for food security and climate and environmental security. Even though nature-based economic blueprints are now coming in vogue, Guyana's LCDs, introduced in 2009, aligning the green economy, the blue economy, and the biodiversity economy was a pioneering strategy, emphasizing nature-based sustainable economic development while simultaneously contributing to the fights for food and climate and environmental security. In this regard, Guyana will join other partners, both states and regional and global institutions, to launch in 2025 the Biodiversity Alliance, which will seek, among other things, to create a biodiversity credit program to incentivize preservation of global biodiversity, and that includes the marine biodiversity. In Guyana's LCDS, the blue economy provides opportunities around several areas: tourism, carbon sequestration, and ecosystem opportunities, particularly among the mangrove forest, sustainably managing fishery stock, expanding shipping and logistics sector, and exploring greater sovereignty via connectivity. Guyana has developed a comprehensive maritime economic plan and has sought to enhance its fishing sector through achieving marine stewardship certification for our marine fishing industry, enabling Guyana to market our fish and fish products with the blue MSC Ecolabel. The blue economy is critical for Guyana's leadership role in CARICOM's 25 by 25 initiative, reducing food imports by 5% by 2025. At this time, this means that CARICOM, for example, must reduce its importation of fish and fish products by a whopping $78 million annually. One strategic direction Guyana has pursued is an aggressive expansion of its aquatic food system. While Guyana has been working with various partners to further optimize the use of its EEZ to expand capture fishing, the country has since 2021 been aggressively organizing and expanding its previously ad hoc aquaculture production. Guyana's aquaculture production grew by 75% in 2023 and is set to more than double in 2024, with further expansion in 2025. A number of initiatives have been introduced. There's been a massive increase in brackish shrimp production, increasing since 2021 by 800%. There's been an introduction of aquaculture of prawns with 10 ponds in 2024 and a target of 3 tons per pond and further additions in 2025 and beyond. There's been an introduction of cage culture fishing in lakes, rivers, and in the Atlantic along our coast in 2023, with a target of more than 100 such mariculture cages operational in 2025. We have established a shrimp hatchery project to support farmers and established a mill for locally produced fish feed with a potential of reducing cost of production between 20 and 40%. And we have invested in research in both our marine and aquaculture resources. While Guyana continues to build our captured fishing and aquaculture capacities as part of the Blue Pathway, Guyana sees other blue opportunities. Guyana's mangrove restoration project was launched in 2010. Outside of expanding Guyana's carbon sink, blue carbon sink, mangroves also provide protection against rising sea level, thereby adding to Guyana's repertoire of climate change adaptation initiatives. But projects like these also add to Guyana's drive for food security and improved livelihoods through micro and small-size enterprises. One example is community-based mangrove honey industries and community-based mangrove preservation enterprises, both of which are operational in Guyana as small-sized community enterprises. From Guyana's perspective, therefore, we want to highlight how the Blue Agenda can help tackle various of the SDGs and development pathway, addressing poverty, addressing national investments, food and nutrition security, climate and environmental security. In 5 minutes, suddenly it's impossible to say what Guyana is doing. And so for those of you interested, I have a written expanded version of what we are doing, which will be available. Dominique or my office can send you their copy. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Ramsammy, for providing these opening remarks and for indeed highlighting Guyana experience and impressive achievements and I would say the multifaceted aspects of the Blue Agenda, the implementation of the Blue Agenda in Guyana, working on expansion of both capture, fisheries and aquaculture, but also looking at other opportunities, as you mentioned, including mangrove restoration, as well as a number of related livelihoods, honey, etc. I think this is very interesting, and the numbers you gave, 800% increase in black shrimp production in 4 years. I mean, wow. And so it shows the potential, and I think the example of Guyana can be extremely useful for other potentially interested countries. So thank you very much, Ambassador. And there will be also opportunities perhaps to dive more into all these achievements. I hope so. And I'm now very pleased to give the floor to Ambassador Falemka, the chair of the Pacific Island Forum, to indeed deliver for opening remarks. Ambassador Falemka, great to have you, and we listen to your remarks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Burgeon, for inviting us to this FAO SIDS dialogue this afternoon. We're very delighted to join the discussion, and also because of the important topic, which is the theme of today's discussion on the blue transformation. For the Pacific, and I think like many fellow small island states, the oceans are probably important aspect of our lives, food security, nutrition security, and also for economic development. For the Pacific in particular, the Pacific Islands Forum leaders have endorsed in 2021 the 2050 strategy for the Blue Pacific continent. Blue Pacific continent basically reflects the fact that we are ocean states. We don't see ourselves as small island states, but we see ourselves as large ocean states. And so the importance of oceans to us is embedded in this 2050 strategy for the Blue Pacific continent. And underlying the strategy, the 2050 strategy, is the principle of building resilient and sustainable economies. So this is the regional framework for our region, which is the region's blueprint for our resilient and sustainable development into the 2050. And the strategy has 7 thematic pillars, and one of the pillars is oceans and environment. So again, oceans is highlighted as one of the critical elements of our 2050 strategy. And because of what I've already said, oceans are basically revolve around our lives, our livelihoods, our culture, our social activities, and our economic sectors. And I should say with the idea of oceans, fisheries remain a very important sector for our region. It is probably the area where there is long-standing and probably the most successful area of our regional cooperation in the Pacific. We have 2 institutions that help manage our resources in the Pacific. The Forum Fisheries Agency, which helps our member states manage their EEZ, and the Secretariat of the Pacific Community, which provides the scientific basis, the stock assessment for our member states. And then of course, those 2 institutions have been joined by the region's RFMO, the Western and Central Pacific Fisheries Commission, or the Tuna Commission, which includes ourselves and the partners that fish in the Pacific. I should say that we've had a long and successful story on fisheries. There are 2 aspects of our fisheries development. One is the offshore fisheries, and mainly our tuna fisheries. And this is a migratory stock that goes in and between our EEZ and the higher seas around us. And that is managed by our Forum Fisheries Agency together with our member states, as well as the Tuna Commission. And we also have the inshore fisheries, which is assisted by the Secretariat of the Pacific Community for us. So on offshore fisheries, and I think just drawing on the negotiations on fisheries we've had, our region has 4 commercial tuna stocks, skipjack, big eye, the yellowfin, and are in a healthy state at the moment. So we've been fortunate because of our strong fisheries management efforts, and they have been long-standing. We've enjoyed the sustainable stocks for all of the 4 species that we have. In fact, around 50% of global tuna catch is caught in the waters of the Pacific, and much of this from the EEZ of the Pacific Island countries. So you can imagine that the interest of the distant water fishing nations are very much targeting the Pacific. But this success story is because of the cooperation amongst our members and assisted by the region's fisheries management organization. So in terms of the food security, yes, fresh tuna exports or fresh tuna accounts for much of the tuna that we eat and sell overseas, but this is a very small proportion given that many of our countries do not have the capacity to even fish our own fish. But the processed tuna is perhaps where we have some success in terms of diversifying our tuna resources. And we have 3 canneries in the region: Fiji, Solomon Islands, and Papua New Guinea. There are about over 22,000 employees across the region. But we have also 2 countries that are also doing loining of tuna. So from that point of view, I think for us, our strong fisheries management, particularly tuna management, has been a success story, and we really want to continue to maintain it at that level. The second aspect of our fisheries relates to coastal fisheries. This is very important for the Pacific Islands because this is where predominantly where our livelihoods, subsistence, and livelihoods security are addressed. And for many of the Pacific Island countries, we are predominantly coastal communities living around the coast. So very much dependent on our coastal fisheries for our livelihoods and food security. Again, as I said, our coastal fisheries are monitored very closely by the Secretariat of the Pacific Community that helps with the stock assessment of our coastal fishery. And from time to time, they advise countries to impose bans on different fisheries in order to sustain our stocks, particularly vegetable if these are overfished. And they've also assisted countries to continue to monitor their own national resources in their coastal fisheries. And Pacific countries are able to then impose their own measures as a result of the stock assessments that they are able to undertake in their coastal fisheries. And I know that Fiji, for instance, imposes a ban on fishing of groupers during the spawning season for a few months. So annually, they impose this ban on the fishing of groupers, and those that violate these bans are either fined or taken to court or both. So, I believe that the Pacific has some success stories to share particularly in the area of the fisheries, particularly on both the offshore fishing as well as the coastal fishing. But that doesn't mean that we should be complacent. There are, of course, threats and risks and challenges to this, to maintaining the sustainability of our stocks. And one particular challenge, of course, is from subsidies to distant water fishing nations that are fishing in our region. And we welcomed very much the WTO Fisheries Subsidies Agreement that was concluded in 2022. That is Fish 1, relating to IUU fishing and overfished stocks. But more importantly, for us, this is not the end. We are keen. We are very keen to also conclude Fish 2. And I think this is the more important element of the fishery subsidies negotiations, because it deals with overcapacity and overfishing. And the Pacific region is really very committed to moving that negotiation forward and having it concluded as soon as possible. The other threat, of course, is from plastics. Marine plastics are have become a regional concern. There are regional measures now agreed by our members to try and contain marine plastics that find themselves into our oceans. And that is an ongoing part of the work of our forum members and one of our other regional sister agencies, the Secretariat of the Pacific Regional Environment Program. Probably a third and probably the last challenge that I would think that I would add to this is climate change. I think the impact of climate change on oceans have become very visible in terms of ocean warming, bleaching of reefs and loss of marine biodiversity. That will affect the health of our fish stocks, and also the warming of oceans will also affect the migration of our fish in the Pacific. So these are very real threats for us, and which leads us to the importance of international cooperation to try and address some of these concerns, because these are some of those concerns that we cannot address alone. Subsidies, we need to work with our partners that are fishing. Climate change, many of our SIDS do not contribute to climate change, but then we are facing the brunt of ocean warming and loss of marine biodiversity. So yeah, again, we thank FAO for bringing this discussion to the table, and we'll hope that you will also help us to find solutions.
This is the aim, certainly. Thank you very much, Ambassador Falemka, for indeed being able to brush such a comprehensive picture of the situation, the importance of ocean for what you call large ocean states. I like that, the large ocean states. We are always talking of the SIDS, but you are also a large ocean state. Ocean being critical for your economy, as highlighted by the 2050 strategy that you spoke about, but also briefing us on efforts that are being made in terms of successful fisheries management, and the work that is done by the various forums that you have in place, but also the RFMOs, very important. And then I think very clearly highlighting a couple of challenges in relation to, of course, fishery subsidies, and highlighting the importance of first implementing and making sure Fisheries 1 enters into force, and then finishing the discussion on Fisheries 2, marine plastics, climate change, and then highlighting finally the importance of international cooperation. So thank you so much. No, I sense that it puts a lot of pressure on Carlos, because Carlos realizes that he has real experts on the topic around the table, with the diplomatic corps here in Geneva being very well versed into blue transformation and the challenge and many opportunities also to test for them. So with that, I'm very pleased to give you the floor, as you are the one coordinating the blue transformation program priority area under the FAO strategic framework. So nobody better than you would be able to brief us on the topic today. So Carlos, please, over to you to really try to highlight the last point of Ambassador. She said, well, we appreciate FAO, but even more so when you offer concrete results and solutions. So over to you. No pressure. Carlos.
I think this is why they brought me here, so that I can take the brunt. And then thank you very much to Mr. Burgeon, and as well, I congratulate FAO Geneva, FAO Brussels, FAO London, and our FAO office for SIDS for organizing these forums. And I thank you, excellencies and representatives, for participating today. I had the pleasure myself of living. I spent 5 years working in the Southern Caribbean, so SIDS, or large ocean states, are close to my heart. So I'm always happy to work with FAO and to work with SIDS and to support and to work alongside them for what we can. Today, I'm going to bombard you with data. I hope you don't mind. And I hope that at least we can get an idea. I'll be presenting the latest State of World Fisheries and Aquaculture. This was published later in July, earlier this year. But when I can, I will be trying to spotlight specific data related to SIDS. Now, I have to warn, we have been developing sort of a SIDS-specific version of SOFIA, but we have encountered certain problems with the analysis because data from SIDS is a challenge, not only in terms of the aquaculture and fisheries, but also the social, economic, consumption data. So we can tell you what the data is for a particular year, in this case, up to 2022, but the long-term trends are sometimes confusing because the volume of production from SIDS compared to the rest of the world is naturally lower. So any year-on-year variance, because perhaps there was a change in the government and data wasn't collected, there was an international shock such as COVID that dealt with those issues. The international market changes and there's not that many exports. So year-on-year variability can really put a dent on long-term trends. And it's sometimes more difficult from SIDS to try to find out those trends because we need a few more years in order to connect the dots. But we are trying very hard, and we hope to have before the end of the year this publication, and I'll highlight some of those issues today. I think the computer is a bit over there, so we will have to handle. So the first message from this year's SOFIA, as world fisheries and aquaculture production is at an all-time high. After a dip, after a COVID dip, we're back to an all-time high. Please, next one. So here we can see for the world, production was about 223 million tons in 2022. This includes 91 million tons of capture fisheries. And if we can click again for the first time, aquaculture production of aquatic animals has superseded the production of capture fisheries. In fact, the production in 2022 of animals from aquaculture was higher than any single year of capture fisheries, bar one. Oh, sorry, back, we're missing just, yes. We're also continue to see tremendous growth in the production of algae. Now, it's important to note, and we'll see in a second, that both algae and aquaculture are mainly concentrated in Asia. In fact, algae, 97% of production of algae is in Asia. And this is, of course, a potential area of opportunity that we will discuss later for SIDS. And the great thing about fisheries and aquaculture production is just the diversity that we have. Now, we have record of around 3,600 species being caught and either consumed or traded. These are around 3,400 species that we have data for from fisheries and around 730 aquaculture types. So this is nothing like any other agricultural production sector. Now we can go to the next slide. And now let's focus in on SIDS. And this is where I mean that there's a lot of noise. So if we have 230 million tons of aquatic and fisheries and aquaculture production for the globe. From SIDS, it's only around 1.9 million tons. So significantly lower, obviously, in much smaller countries compared to the large producers. Of these, around 1.8 million tons are of capture fisheries. We have around 500,000 tons of aquaculture, so 50,000 tons of aquaculture, and around 14,000 tons of algae. And this represents around 2.3% of global production comes from SIDS. Now, if you look at the chart, you as the community of SIDS, you know that obviously the marine capture will be the most significant. But what perhaps you didn't realize is how significant the tunas are. So the blue part of the chart is marine capture fisheries. Everything above the dotted line in blue is tunas, and everything below the dotted line is everything else. So about 70% of SIDS production in our records are tuna and tuna similar species. And in terms of aquaculture, we see that there was a bit of a boom in aquaculture in the late 90s, early 2000s, but that has decreased since then. So while the rest of the world aquaculture production has been growing and growing, in the SIDS we sort of had the opposite effect. Although we've just heard from His Excellency Ramsammy that some countries are trying to heavily invest in aquaculture. As I mentioned before, it's very difficult to observe trends, and you see that. So just very quickly, we see that big decrease after year 2000, and we're still trying to understand from the data where that was coming from. Next. And by region. So as I mentioned before, a full 70% of global production comes from Asia. And even in Asia, more than 60% is from aquaculture. And if you see the other regions of the world, capture fisheries dominates. So it's really Asia that's driving global aquaculture increases in production. If you go by SIDS regions, and we've divided them in the three traditional, let's say, SIDS regions, we have about 1 million tons from the Pacific, around 429,000 tons from AIS, and around 413,000 tons from the Caribbean. Of these three, in fact, the Caribbean dropped its production in the last 22 years. And if we go back in time, we'll see it was in fact the Caribbean that produced, particularly from fisheries, the highest amount. Now, there's a lot to investigate and try to understand why this production dropped, and we'll mention it in a second in the next slide. So this is for me so far of the research we've done on SIDS. This is my favorite chart. I know it's a bit difficult to read because there's different colors, and I have a couple of colleagues that will probably bang me over the head. But basically what we're seeing here is in blue, you see the capture of tunas, marine tunas by decade. And you can clearly see, particularly in AIS SIDS, all the way to the left, and in Pacific SIDS, that we've had a significant increase in the catches of tunas since around the year 2000 to date. A significant explosion in the Pacific side. But I really want to pay attention to the yellow one, which are the marine catches excluding tunas. And we can see, at least in the Caribbean and in the Pacific, that it seems like a trend is appearing of lower catches of marine species excluding tunas. Now, we have to continue understanding why this is. It might not necessarily be because of overfishing, although of course that's a possibility. It might be that effort is redirected towards tunas because they're more valuable, or towards other species. It might be that we have issues with record keeping lately. The last bar is only 3 or 4 years, so maybe it's a small trend that it will reverse in the data when we look back at it at 5 or 6 years. But the nearshore fisheries seem to indicate a decline from the catch data. Although if you're a marine biologist or a fisheries economist, you know that catches themselves are not enough to say whether a species is fished or overfished. It requires a bit more information than that, but it's an interesting trend. And you see also in red, aquaculture, it really has been confined to the Caribbean. A little bit of aquaculture in the Pacific, a little bit in AIS. But this also makes a little bit more sense if you think of the size of the countries and the access to water that some countries in the Caribbean have, such as Cuba, Dominican Republic, Guyana, Suriname. Whereas in other parts, You might only have, Papua New Guinea or other islands that might not have the necessary conditions thus far for aquaculture. And this just to give you a general sense, and something we like to do in the state of fisheries, we pulled out the 10 biggest producers from all the SIDS, and the 10 largest producers are responsible for around 77% of the catches and aquaculture production, I apologize. And these are evenly spread between AIS and the Pacific. We do have Belize there from the Caribbean, although Belize tends to have catches from non-adjacent waters, which means that they have vessels far away from Belize catching fish. Mm-hmm. So you see the level of concentration in the production area. Now, one of the most important parts, and Ambassador Falemka mentioned it, is the contribution to food security, as well as Ambassador Ramsammy. So the contribution of aquatic food systems to global food security and nutrition is growing in general terms. If we see around the world, aquatic food consumption has reached a 20.7 kilograms per capita, which is a five-fold increase in the last 50 years. And the number of fish or aquatic foods that we use for direct consumption rather than non-food uses is, contrary to popular belief, actually decreasing. So we are using more fish directly to consume ourselves, aquatic foods, rather than as indirect or non-food uses, which is not what you tend to listen to when particularly addressing aquaculture and other items. If we look at the SIDS, and I have to qualify that the data from SIDS on apparent consumption is from 2019. We have not been able to finalize the update to 2021. It was about 34 kilograms in AIS, SIDS, 17.9 kilograms in the Pacific, and 9.5 kilograms in the Caribbean. As you can see, the Pacific and the Caribbean actually have lower apparent food consumption than the global average. And this can be by a variety of reasons. It can be when we divide capture by population. Of course, lower populations with a lot of capture will provide a higher apparent food consumption. It might be because of distance to markets in terms of what we're exporting. We might be exporting more than we consume ourselves. Preferences. I lived in the Caribbean. There's a lot of preferences for non-fish, for example, which might address part of this, as well as, unfortunately, the state of stocks. It might be a production issue, but we just don't really know in general terms. I must say that for the AIS, Singapore, which we have listed as a SIDS, has a significant consumption, around 40 kilograms per capita per year. But that if we exclude Singapore, that still brings it down to around 28, 27 kilograms. And apparent food consumption is not the same as real food consumption. So this is basically the production in a country minus exports plus imports divided by population. This is not the result of a household survey where we're looking at what people actually consume. So if we have a lot of subsistence fishing in the Pacific, for example, that is not entering official records, then that would not be captured because it's not in the production data, even though some of it is estimated. And of the byproducts, so this is the non-food uses, around 34% goes to fish meal and around 53% goes to fish oil. But again, these are actually decreasing as a percentage of the total. The next one, which I know is very interesting, particularly for the SIDS representatives that we speak to in Rome and that we meet in venues such as this, is that aquaculture has the potential to meet the growing demand for aquatic foods and continues to grow. But we'll see that next slide. Sorry, one more, so we can add the whole data. Okay. So we mentioned earlier that 90% of aquaculture production actually comes from Asia. So of the 113 million tons, 90% comes from Asia. And if we look at, however, when we look at growth rate of aquaculture, which is your middle column, we're starting to see significant growth in Africa and Latin America and Caribbean, of course, from a much lower base. Although we see sustained growth in Asia, around 5.2% year over year. and then lower growth, but still growing in Europe and Oceania. The world average is 5% of growth year on year. So this is lower than the previous decade, and we expect that the next decade will be lower, but still in a continuously growing curve. And when we look at the aquaculture from SIDS, I think it's quite impressive for whatever reason, the low quantity of production. So we only have about 49,000 tons in 2022 for SIDS. Of this, almost half is from the Caribbean, about 40% from the Pacific, and the remainder from AIS SIDS. And production, as we mentioned earlier, was actually higher around 20 years ago. Now, there are lots of variables that have prevented the development of aquaculture. Some of them you know better than I am. We have issues with, obviously, the cost of aquaculture, preferences, market competitiveness, the food situation, the freshwater situation. These are all significant challenges. And although aquaculture has tremendous potential, also in SIDS, we must ensure that individual countries understand their potential and have the necessary information to develop before investing heavily in perhaps a futile attempt at develop an industry where the necessary conditions do not exist. Of course, that's what FAO is here. That's why our partners in the Pacific and in the Caribbean, CARICOM, SPC are there for, and we're committed to working with the countries that want to develop their aquaculture sector. Now, we mentioned sustainability. So marine capture continues to be vital. It has been stable for 25 years, but sustainability remains a concern. So the number of sustainable stocks in our index are around 62.3%. That's both underfished and fished at their maximum sustainability. But we have seen increasing overfishing, so we're up to 37.7%. The important part here is that when we look at volume, 77% of landings are from sustainable stocks, whereas 23% of landings are from unsustainable. And these are larger numbers and smaller numbers than the left. This means that for important stocks that we catch a lot from, we are managing them correctly, and they are giving us significant yield because of management. One more, please. Now, and the same applies here. Of the top 10 species that we catch, and these include those gigantic small fish fisheries in the Pacific, almost 80% are from sustainably sourced. And I mentioned tunas earlier, and Ambassador Falemka mentioned how much they're working for the management of tunas. 87% of major commercial tunas, the landings, 87% of landings come from sustainable stocks. And this really is shows the commitment and perseverance of the countries that are managing these stocks together, particularly in the Pacific, where the largest tuna fisheries are. So this gives you an example that management works, and management gives us good yields. And of course, we have to mention livelihoods and trade and development, for which aquatic foods are critical. You can put them all on just to move a little. Right now, around the world, we have around 62 million people that participate in the primary sector, and they are responsible for around 600 million livelihoods. So 62 million people at 8 billion is around like 0.7% of the global population is in the primary sector for fisheries and aquaculture. In SIDS, our records show around 687,000 people working in the sector, 98% of them in fisheries. But we do not have great data. We continue to need to work with all of you to try to understand how many people work in the sector. And if we divide this by the SIDS population, it's around 1%. So it's in fact a little bit, there's a greater percentage of people working in the sector than for the global population. And then around 24% of women of the primary sector are women, and one more, but around 62% in the secondary. So this is post-harvest and the processing, etc. I apologize. And then in terms of trade data, again, this is a very difficult to address for SIDS because of the data we have on exports and imports. But I can tell you that around the world, we have a new record of first sale value of around $472 billion US. 312 billion from aquaculture, which is an 11% increase, and 159 billion from capture fisheries. Some of it is due to inflation, of course, but a lot of it is due to increased production and more demand. And then around 230 states and territories trade aquatic foods, which is around 70 million tons, and $102 billion of aquatic foods are traded. This makes it the highest, the most valuable traded food commodity, even though my colleagues at UNCTAD will claim that other non-food agricultural products are higher. I have to say here that a lot of SIDS, around half, run trade deficits on aquatic food products. And this is data that we will have, which means that around half of SIDS are importing more aquatic foods that they're exporting. This is particularly true in the Caribbean. And while we don't have necessarily direct studies, we need to understand the trade dynamics. We need to understand the role of tourism, for example, in importing products and understanding where these products come from and why they are, why we're running these trade deficits. We expect more from aquatic foods. It's not enough. So we need to continue growing aquatic foods sustainably, at least by 10% by 2032. This is what our numbers tell us, up to 205 million tons. But given population growth, we actually have to produce higher than this 10% in order to keep up that per capita food consumption. So the opportunity is there, but we really must increase how much we're producing. So here is a table that we've calculated of how much we need to grow aquatic animal supply just to keep up with the current per capita consumption. So Africa, 74%, Asia, 12%. This is the amount that needs to be produced just to maintain the current per capita consumption. But if we want the per capita consumption to increase in all places to the average right now, for example, for Africa, we would need to increase production by 285% to get Africa per capita consumption to the global average. This information is not available yet for SIDS, but it gives you an idea of the challenge and the possibilities in front of us. And then as a next slide, I just want to highlight all of them, if you want, please. I just want to highlight that in FAO, we're working for 3 core objectives, which are the blue transformation, which is sustainable aquaculture, sustainable aquaculture, management of all fisheries, and upgraded value chains that allow us to reap the social and economic benefits of aquatic food systems. And this requires sustainable production growth, effective management of 100% of fisheries, and reducing loss and waste, improving traceability, better market access, and better returns. So I thank you. I warned that I was going to bombard you with numbers. We have more where that comes from if you're interested. And we'll have questions and answers afterwards. I think we can move on, but I also acknowledge my colleagues Rafaela and Diana and AB for helping with this presentation.
Well, thank you very much, Carlos. This is this is not bombing, this is carpet bombing. This is really intense. And but thank you very much for giving us, and for indeed last week we had a very good conversation on the CARICOM. And one of the things we came up with was the issue of data. I mean, the fact that indeed there were discrepancies, that it's challenging to have data, and that more efforts need to be made on data statistics. And Angélica was there in that dialogue also when we discussed that, and definitely an area where more needs to be done. But I think it's nevertheless super useful for us to see all you can already generate in terms of specific data for this group of countries and for the various sub-regions, of course, showing the huge discrepancies. I didn't realize that Asia was so big when it comes to, for example, aquaculture, 90%, and tuna, the importance of tuna in the SIDS. Of course, you hinted to that, but it's huge. So thank you very much, Carlos, for all that. I took some numbers, but it's very intense. So thank you very much. And there will be, I would like again to invite people to please hold on your questions, and and those who are online, please do not hesitate to come up with some question on the Q&A module. Now, we will have the opportunity now to hear from two different SIDS perspectives with the Dominican Republic and Cabo Verde on the potential of aquatic food system in advancing the 2030 agenda. And we will start with Mr. Angel Luis Franco, who is the Director of the Fisheries Resource Department at the Fisheries and Aquaculture Council of the Dominican Republic. Mr. Franco, he's online. We see Ms. Rodriguez, but can we please spotlight on Mr. Franco? Yes, here he is. Welcome, Mr. Franco. And could you please share some insights on how the Fish for ACP project in Dominican Republic has unlocked the potential of sustainable fisheries and aquaculture, and what are the lessons learned in terms of blue transformation? Over to you, Mr. Franco.
Yes, hi to all. Thank you for the opportunity, for the invitation to join to this important meeting. Thanks to all. I think we can share a presentation that we have. We can show very shortly for you. It's okay?
Yes.
It's coming.
Thank you very much. This project, Fish for ACP, is a great opportunity for the Dominican Republic to work with the fishermen and to try to develop the best issue for them. The fisheries and aquaculture in the Dominican Republic are mainly artisanal and contributing less than 1% of the GDP, but it's the most important source of the income in vulnerable coastal communities, contributing to its well-being. The main fisheries resource are lobsters, queen conch, kingfish, that we call it mahi-mahi, or tuna, kingfish, snapper, groupers, etc. And the aquaculture is based mainly in growth out and production of tilapia fingerlings. This is the second slide that we show over there right now. We are talking about to work with the future development of value of change of fisheries, and particular those of mahi-mahi, dorado that we call in Spanish, and tuna and other larger pelagic species have a great potential for improving the fish quality and earnings of fisheries and their families. And you can change the slide, please. In these topics, like say the image is sitting from traditional and short-lasting fisheries, the quality bureau of change development approach can be an instrumental in triggering the food system change in the Dominican Republic. One of the main issue targeted by Fish for ACP and Colopesca is the improvement of the cold change to ensure the fish quality and great income for mahi-mahi value chain actors. This is very important things for the fishermen to try to put more value to their practice. In the fourth slide, this is the equipment that we will show to you is try to keeping the fish fresh more efficiently. The coastal marine fisheries in the Dominican Republic need this opportunity, because transforming the poor quality of fisheries, they bring just only the short living without this equipment. But with this equipment, we can provide more longer time the quality of the fisher and or the specificity of the fishery sectors is aimed to improve the quality of the products, and this improve more earnings to the fishermen. This prototype is very interesting because it's putting out the machinery that works inside of those. This is part of the advantage of the durable pool of change. One of those is improvement in the fishery pool change. The potential to improve in the product qualities is very important, these things, because in the Dominican Republic, we have a blackout lights, and maybe the coastal area has just only 16 or 18 hours for energy, and the other hours, they don't receive the energies. It's very important to do this. The better quality and long lasting in the core equipment is very important because that can bring to them more space to keep with them, to do not invest in another kind of equipment like this one more shortly. The next one, please. In the good practice, we are talking about the social protection for artisanal mahi-mahi fish folks. And this is very important issue in the Dominican Republic because we are talking about, we have coastal and marine fisheries in this kind of people provide food for many people and support the livelihood of around 22,000 artisanal fisheries, fish vendors, and their families. Many of them are not included in the public social protection schemes, and they do not appear in the social and labor statistics. That is the works that we have to do with SIUBEN, is an institution for the Dominican Republic who has the responsibility to work with the social issues and with Codopesca. And we try to cover cross-referring and sharing information about the fisheries and their families, as well making a social and economic profiles of females fish vendors who are heads of families. And this institution, SIUBEN, will use this information to decide who qualified to be included in the social protection program. Next slide, please. The goal is to help these kind of guys who are working on in all the value of change. They are receiving right now. A few of them, right now we have 5,000 fishermen and his family covered by the Social Security right now. Next slides. This is a program that we are started. We're in the middle of the pandemic time. It's called in Spanish Pescadería de mi barrio. We call it fishmongers in my neighborhood. The goal to this program is to increase the consumption of low-cost fishery and aquaculture products nationwide, with Codopesca serving as a channel between producers and fishers and new entrepreneurs, facilitating that the product reach the final consumers at a lower price. Because Codopesca supports the space, the adequacy, provision of freezers, digital weighings and fluor scales, cleaning and safety materials, and weekly we provide transportation for fresh products to each fishmonger's shop, training in food safety and good food practice, and free marketing license. This is very important issue because that is that we want to do is promote the consumption, because in our island the more important consumption of protein is chicken. We want to change a little bit of this. And thank you very much for your attention.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Mr. Franco, for this presentation, for indeed being able to move from the overall picture that was provided by Carlos, providing all the numbers of the SOFIA and the numbers for the SIDS, to this very concrete example of finally the wide range of action that you are undertaking in the Dominican Republic in the context of this Fish for ACP project, where you work on durable cold chain, but and I think this is also very relevant for Geneva, where you work on social protection for fisher folks. Geneva is a place where is discussed the issue of social security for all in the context of the Human Rights Council and others. So this is very important for that. But then also the point, and I was checking with Carlos, you said on average for the Caribbean, it is
9.5.
9.5 kilo of apparent food consumption, fish consumption per year. And therefore you refer to the efforts that you are undertaking to ensure increased consumption of low-cost fisheries products in the context of your fishmongers in my neighborhood. So this is indeed very important, very interesting to see in a project like that the range of activities which you are covering and therefore contributing to, I think, a real blue transformation. So thank you very much. Please stay with us because there might be a question from participants in the meeting today. And now, and you have been there patiently waiting, Ms. Rodriguez from Cabo Verde, and you are a technician at the National Directorate of Fisheries and Aquaculture in the Ministry of the Sea of the Republic of Cabo Verde. And could you please share how the Sustainable Fisheries Value Chain for SIDS project has contributed to increased sustainable production and trade in fish products, and what are the related pathways for blue transformation? Over to you, Ms. Rodriguez.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you for this opportunity to speak a little bit of our experience as a SIDS country and how the value chain of mackerel, scat, and tuna-like species are helping us to improve our economic resilience, food security, and the sustainable management of the marine resources. This is a strategy that has a 10-year timeline. So here in this slide, you can see a map of Cabo Verde, where the red line represents our vast ZE, and the black one represents our coastal line. Maybe that's one of the main reasons that can explain our little halieutic resources comparing to our neighboring African countries. Cabo Verde shares with all SIDS the majority of the same problems, such as remoteness, heavy dependence on important products, and poor infrastructures and vulnerability to climate change. The vast maritime territories are often crucial for sustainable development, ensuring food security, fostering job creation, and offering outdoor recreation opportunities that are deeply connected to local culture and livelihoods of coastal communities. And here you can see some fisheries data that I'm gonna zoom now in the next slide. Okay, we have the two boosting the two important value chains for fisheries in Cabo Verde, from black mackerel and small tuna. Both value chains are essential for food security, job creation. Over 7,000 people depends on it, with 80% of fish vendors being women. and the fish trade representing a significant portion of our country export. Black mackerel contributes to 38% of the country trade, while small tuna 23%. Per capita fish consumption was 11.2 kilos in 2017, reflecting the importance of these fisheries of this in the local diet and nutrition. The sustainable of fish value chains projects aims to improve these value chains and promote their sustainability and competitiveness. And here we have the key steps that we put in the projects, the SVC for SIDS projects. The sustainable value chain for these two species has received a significant boost with the SVC for SIDS project founded by South Korea until 2025 and implemented by FAO. The project is being implemented on 3 islands in Santiago, São Vicente, and São Nicolau. And the key steps were the follows. The selection of the value chain and the decision on the project's islands were made by Cabo Verdean Ministry of the Sea after discussion and deliberation between the project and the ministry regarding the final choices of the species. Next, the function analysis and the sustainable assessment steps were conducted by FAO consultants and coordinated by Cabo Verde fisheries experts. The development of upgrading strategy was a crucial step as it involved engaging all stakeholders in the sector. Through brainstorming sessions, our vision and strategy were born. For the implementation plan, we have strong support of the National Value Chain Task Force created for this purpose, which includes a group of 12 public and private stakeholders creating an action plan that outlines specific activities to implement improvements. This plan is based on the analysis and diagnosis made in the previous stages. So, like I said, here was born the vision that is by 2033, Cabo Verde will have a value chain of fishery products whose quality and quantity guarantee food security, socio-economic well-being, and sustainability of the ecosystem. And this upgrading strategy works towards 3 outcomes: environmental sustainability, financial investment opportunities and socio-economic sustainability, economic performance for micro, small and medium enterprises, value addition, safety and quality. On a wide range of 36 activities by implementing these 10 projects, and these projects are connected to the components: institutional support, monitoring, control and surveillance, key climate challenge adaptations and mitigation, eco-labeling, formalization of operators and creation of the MSME, capacities in terms of environmental, socio-economic and financial sustainable and technical professional service, modernization of the fleet and improvement of supporting infrastructures and equipment, value addition and public-private partnerships initiatives, food safety and qualities. These are the 10 projects. And here you have a photo from the task force. Here I just enlighten you with some of the outputs that we aim to achieve through the implementation of the planet activities, conduct biological and economic assessment, modeling and training, update and ensure compliance with ecosystem approach to fisheries, establish a sustainable certification system for mackerel, scat, and tuna-like species, improvement of financial and technical capacities of fishing operators, establish small-scale processing units for increased value addition and guarantee food quality. And just this is just to give you some examples. Like I said, we have in a total 24 outputs and 36 activities. For the investments, for the implementation, to ensure the successful implementation of the outcomes and an investment of approximately $6 million US is essential. These figures covers a range of needs, including service, infrastructures, training, software, equipment, and communication activities. The SVC for SIDS project will contribute around $705,000 USD until 2025. This amount does not include administrative, technical, and operation costs of implementation activities. And in addition, investment partners are actively being sought to support the project. And finally, some of our remarks. The implementation of the project has the strong support of the National Value Chain Task Force, and this was and still is the cornerstone of its success. The development of the upgrading strategy was an extensive and very engaging process, also mapping existing initiatives to avoid duplication and capitalize on successful experience. The task force also validated the investment plan associated to the strategy. Stakeholders' engagement. The involvement of stakeholders is crucial for the sustainability of the value chain, making the continuity of this project essential. Their involvement has ensured that the project aligns with national priorities and will receive the necessary resources and attention. Sustainability. The project has made and still makes significant strides in creating a sustainable value chain. This includes implementing eco-friendly practice, reducing waste, and promoting the use of renewable resources. Economic impact. By enhancing the value chain, the project contributes to economic growth. This includes creating jobs, increasing productivity, and boosting the local business. For innovation, the project has introduced innovative solutions and technologies that will improve the efficiency and effectiveness across the value chain. For the community benefits, local communities will benefit from the project through improved infrastructures, financial education, training, improving quality of life for women in fish sectors. Long-term vision. The project is extremely positive and it's aligned with the strategic goals set for 2013, ensuring that its benefits are not just immediately, but also sustainable over time. It would be highly beneficial if the project were extended until 2030, with the crucial support of South Korea and FAO to ensure the successful implementation of all the planet projects. And here you have some photos of some activities that we have made until now. And thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Ms. Rodriguez, indeed, for this presentation on the sustainable fish value chain for SIDS program that you are running in Cabo Verde. Another, I would say, large ocean state. When I see 735,000 square kilometers of EEZ, it's huge. So indeed, big challenges, but very important work. Again, covering a range of activities: environmental sustainability, financing, investment, formalization of this economic sector, economic performances, and then a couple of I found principles that you reiterated at the end in terms of stakeholder engagement, alignment with national priorities, etc., but also highlighting the importance of innovation for the sustainable, I would say, blue transformation that you are putting into motion in Cape Verde, and that we all heard your plea for it to continue until 2030. So thank you very much for that. And now we have a little bit of time for some comments here, questions, suggestions, and yes. So we'll start here online. Yes, Madame from Barbados, DPR from Barbados.
Thank you very much. The presentations, I'm thoroughly blown away by the presentations, and I congratulate all for the strides that they've made. And if we can get a copy of the slides, it would really be appreciated. But my question to all really, along with all the projects, I want to know what type, if any, regulatory reform, legislative reform was required in order for you to be able to capitalize on the opportunities presented in capture fishing and aquaculture, really, especially bearing in mind some of the requirements to get in external markets, what kind of reform you had to undertake.
Okay, thank you very much. Maybe we can take one or two. Ambassador, permanent representative Jamaica.
Thank you very much, Dominique, for organizing this very important session, and thanks as well to my colleague ambassadors for the presentations and the national and regional efforts being made to advance fisheries and aquatic production. I just wanted to find out a bit more, and the question is really targeted to Mr. Pentavilla in terms of the data that you presented on this. Well, you can tell us a bit more of the source of the data, perhaps how we can access this kind of data for the analysis that we need to do at the regional level. I noticed that in the presentation you gave, a lot of them information was around Latin America and the Caribbean. I suppose that's for one reason or another. So we would wonder a bit more about why that was so, and whether we can have more disaggregated data for the Caribbean SIDS, so that we can understand a little bit more acutely the challenges that they're faced with there. And you mentioned non-food uses in terms of the use of fish. I wondered what those were, and perhaps you could elucidate a bit more on that.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador. The ambassador from the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, OECS, Excellency.
Yeah, thank you. I'm sorry, but I hope this is not false pretenses, but I don't have a question. What I wanted to do was to highlight some of the differences, because I'm fascinated by the presentations, but I find that the situation we have in the Eastern Caribbean is so very different. And first of all, in the Pacific, there are vast distances. In the Caribbean, in the Eastern Caribbean, it's completely different. From Antigua and Barbuda, I see Guadeloupe. It's 60 kilometers across the water. There are multiple jurisdictions, yet it is one management area. So you have to collectively manage. Guadeloupe is French, Saint Martin is Dutch, the British Virgin Islands is British. These are all territories of Europe. And then you have the 6 independent countries of the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, but it is one management area which must be managed by one management system. So this is incredibly difficult. And there is an ECROP, Eastern Caribbean Regional Oceans Policy, which seeks to harmonize the management systems that are used. And in the OECS, we also have a regional fisheries policy. And basically, we have a single ocean space, so that for certain purposes, for fisheries and so on, the space is integrated. And that includes for fisheries, for law enforcement, for it's one jurisdiction for certain purposes. So if you, for instance, if you commit an offense in the waters of Antigua and Barbuda, our Coast Guard can pursue you into the waters of Montserrat or Dominica or wherever. So also, I just want to make one final point because I realize I'm talking too much and I'm not asking a question. We basically have a demersal fisheries, inshore coastal fisheries, and we have not yet exploited the pelagic species, which are really the high value species. And it has tremendous potential because in fact, we sit astride some very important markets, the US market and the European market. And the European market, you can access through Guadeloupe and Martinique. 500 million people and 340 million people through high value species. So I just wanted to highlight, I found the presentations very, very interesting, but so totally different from where I come from. Thank you.
Thank you. Indeed, it shows I believe, it shows the complexity, even within a region, of how to handle these issues in a very coherent way. And it shows, indeed, as you say, the differences between the various regions. We are talking about under the umbrella of large ocean states and small island developing states. So yeah, so thank you very much for this comment. Anybody else? No, I don't see online. No, online. So perhaps shall I start to ask our 2 colleagues from Dominican Republic and Cabo Verde, if they have any reaction, especially perhaps on the question of the colleague from Barbados on the sort of, if I understood correctly, the legislative reforms that you had to put in place to start this transformation. Mr. Franco, do you want to start?
Can you repeat the question, please? I couldn't hear very well.
Do you want to repeat it, or shall I? I mean, basically, you have fish for ACP, and then you have the value chain for the sustainable fish value chain for SIDS in Cabo Verde. This is very, very diverse. You are touching on a range of topics. From you mentioned social protection to better cold chain, etc. So it means you are doing a comprehensive transformation. Is there been some legislative transformation, regulatory transformations that were done to enable the implementation of such a program? Is it what you were looking for?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Excellent.
Yes.
Anything you want to say on that?
Yeah, we found a way for the center of the states to integrate the fishermen and aquaculture communities into the social security system through the subsidized social security system. When we started doing this, we we look that the fishermen need something else, and that in that moment is the where receive all the support for the program, for the project Fish for ACP, and we can start to identify what would they need to do this and how to connect with the system, social security system. That is the issue that we discover in that area specifically, and we share with 2 or 3 countries more in the Latin American and Central America, and they are very interesting to implement this social security system for the fishermen because they don't have it, and we are starting to talk about with them how to do it in their countries, because we have a lot of different laws, fishery laws, aquaculture laws, and the high level taking decision in our countries, and we think we can do it. But we are working right now with develop our law, the 307 for 2004. The law enforce us to do what we are doing right now, and that is very important things.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Franco. Ms. Rodriguez, anything you want to add?
Yes, thank you for the question. Just to say that here in Cabo Verde too, we are start to revise the legislation to adapt it to the new challenges. And one of the examples also is that we are updating our fishery plan, our fishery management plan, incorporating the ecosystem approach, and I think that these two how can I say this? These 2 actions will help us to adapt better to the challenges. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Carlos, there was a question from the ambassador of Jamaica on the issue of data access, and
Yes.
And the question also on non-food use
Yes.
of fisheries products.
So very quickly on non-food uses, most of what this is when fish is transformed to fish meal, fish oil, and either used in medicines or used for feed for other agricultural products, such as chickens or beef. We have some use, particularly of algae in the cosmetics industry, for example. So those are the types of items that are for non-food uses. Now, in terms of the data, we have an excellent team of statisticians that work with your countries, in fact. So the data comes from the countries to FAO, and depending on the quality and the origin, they work with it alongside their colleagues in the countries, and then it's all posted online. We have a database called FishStat. So you can go, or anybody from your countries can go to FishStat, you can download the database, and all of the data is there from your countries going back to 1950s in some cases. But I have to state this again, the quality of FAO's data reflects the quality of national data. And that's the key issue right there. When the data in the countries is good, the data of our quality, the quality of our data is good, and vice versa. Although we do work with countries directly with your statistics department, directly with the fisheries and aquaculture divisions on how to improve the collection. And we're always available for that as a fundamental area of work.
Excellent. Mr. Kisora? No, you wanted to speak? Yeah.
I'll have mine of the One Goal Initiative for governance.
Okay.
A simple question, probably. I believe Mr. Franco mentioned tilapia. Was that you who mentioned tilapia? Why that choice?
Can you come again?
Yes, we
Okay.
are we are working with tilapias in the aquaculture, but we are using at the same times another species like shrimps, like I don't know in English how to do it, but we call it pacu. It's a colosoma. We are working on that kind of fish too in aquaculture.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Franco. So I think I don't see any questions. We have already exceeded the time, but I still would like to invite my colleague Angélica, the director of the SIDS, LDCs and LLDCs office at FAO headquarters, to make some closing remarks before we conclude today's event. Angélica.
Thank you, Dominique. I would like to thank also our panelists and distinguished guests for such a rich and meaningful exchange on the importance of maximizing the potential of aquatic food systems in small island developing states, or SIDS. Today, we had the opportunity to learn about different fisheries and aquaculture practices across the 3 SIDS regions, namely Atlantic, Indian Ocean, South China Sea, the Caribbean, and Pacific. I wish to commend His Excellency Ambassador Ramsammy for highlighting Guyana's holistic approach to develop aquatic food value chains and their contribution to, among others, the CARICOM 25 by 25 initiative. Heartfelt thanks also to Her Excellency Ambassador Falemka, Chair of the Pacific Island Forum, for emphasizing the crucial role of aquatic food systems in ensuring food security, nutrition, livelihoods, and resilience building, as well as in supporting the implementation of the 2050 strategy for a blue Pacific continent. I would also like to express our appreciation for the interventions from our panelists, Ms. Rodriguez and Mr. Franco, highlighting specific initiatives such as sustainable value chains for small island developing states in Cabo Verde and fish for ACP in Dominican Republic as concrete examples of how to enhance productivity and competitiveness of value chains while ensuring their environmental sustainability and social inclusiveness. Last but not least, I would like to thank Carlos Fuentevilla for his presentation of the state of the world fisheries and aquaculture, zooming in on the particular situation of SIDS, including sustainability issues and the potential for aquaculture. He also stressed the challenges in terms of data and the need for a deeper dive to understand these trends. Today's discussion clearly emphasizes the importance of maximizing the contribution of aquatic food systems to enable SIDS, and in particular, local communities, to address the multifaceted challenges they face, from food insecurity and nutrition to adapting and mitigating to the impacts of climate change and the need to build more resilient livelihoods. Promoting fisheries and aquaculture practices that contribute to all dimensions of sustainable development is central to FAO's work and purpose, where Blue Transformation is a key program priority area within the organization's strategic framework. Moreover, fisheries and aquaculture are one of the 10 domains of action of the FAO Global Roadmap for achieving SDG 2 without reaching the 1.5 Celsius threshold, where FAO offers an integrated approach that brings together a range of stakeholders to collaborate in responding to the urgent need to tackle food insecurity, all forms of malnutrition, while simultaneously taking climate action, reducing inequalities, increasing efficiencies, and moving toward a global rebalance. The discussions today reflect how to drive this change through FAO's Blue Transformation Roadmap, which outlines a vision to maximize the contribution of aquatic food systems to enable access to healthy diets, ensure environmental stewardship, and inclusive economic growth, especially for those communities that depend on fisheries and aquaculture. Moving forward, it is fundamental for us to continue the inter- and interregional knowledge exchanges included via South-South and triangular cooperation mechanisms to further spark action and learning among SIDS, while, as the ambassador from the OACS mentioned, recognizing that one size does not fit all. Fishers, fish farmers, and fish workers and their communities are essential players in driving, adapting, and implementing new practices, innovations, and/or technologies in the value chain for the benefit of all. It is therefore crucial that they hold a central role in any intervention. Increased access to knowledge, tools, and resources to respond effectively and promptly to the multiple challenges faced by fisherfolk is key to deliver on the Sustainable Development Goal. Let us continue to work together to maximize the contribution of aquatic food systems in SIDS, and ensure food security and nutrition for all, leaving no one behind. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Angélica. And again, on behalf of your office, but also the office in FAO office in Brussels, New York, and here in Geneva. I would like to thank you all for participating today, those who have spoken, those who have made comments, the panelists, those who have prepared for the event. And again, I would like to remind you that this dialogue series is made for you, by you. So please tell us what are the topics that you would like us to discuss. We have identified a couple when we met with the CARICOM group the other day, data and others. Please tell us, and we'll be pleased to accommodate that as part of our SIDS solution dialogues in the weeks and months to come. So in the meantime, thank you again for coming. Thank you for your incredible comments and insights. And we look forward to further, I would say, support your efforts. Thank you very much.
Thank you.